Have you ever done something you can't take back? Something you carry quietly. Something you've never told anyone. Not a small mistake. Not a careless word. That one. The one that shows up in the silence when you least want it to. And the heaviest part isn't the memory. The heaviest part is believing it defines you now. That you crossed a line you cannot uncross. Today I'm going to tell you the story of the man who committed what many consider the single greatest act of violence in human history. And what happened to him afterward may force you to rethink everything you thought you knew about forgiveness. His name was Longinus. And almost no one tells his full story. He wasn't the powerful soldier you might imagine. Ancient tradition describes him as a young man, about 25 years old, and with a problem few people mention. His eyesight was failing. The oldest traditions about his life describe a condition that made it difficult for him to see clearly. A soldier with poor vision was a soldier at a disadvantage. Longinus knew that. So even before he arrived at Golgotha that day, Longinus was already carrying something. Not just the weight of his armor. The weight of not measuring up. Of trying to do his duty while his own body worked against him. Being a Roman soldier in Jerusalem at that time was not easy. The city was a powder keg. The Jewish population resented the occupation. The Romans responded with force. Executions were common. Riots were frequent. And in the middle of all that tension, a young soldier with failing eyesight was simply trying to do his job without drawing attention. That day he was assigned to Golgotha, a hill just outside the city walls. The place where Rome executed those who challenged its authority. It was meant to be a visible warning. For Longinus it was supposed to be just another afternoon of work. He had seen crosses before. He had watched men die slowly in the sun. It no longer disturbed him. But that day felt different from the beginning. The city felt more unsettled than usual. There was a tension in the air that no one could quite explain. And the man at the center of the three crosses was not behaving like the others. Instead of cursing the people who were killing him, he asked forgiveness for them. Longinus heard it from below. He did not understand what it meant, but he could not ignore it. Then the order came. Verify that he was dead. Longinus picked up his spear. He stepped forward, and he drove it into the man's side. In that moment he had no idea what was about to happen next. From the open side came blood and water, and part of it fell on his face, on his eyes, and Longinus began to see. First physically. His eyes, which had been failing for some time, suddenly came into sharp focus. The world in front of him became clear again. But something else happened at the same time. Something deeper. Something harder to explain. He looked up at the man he had just pierced. And in that moment he understood something that changed everything. Something no military training had ever taught him. Something no Roman philosopher had ever explained. This man was not just another condemned prisoner. And then Longinus did something no Roman soldier was supposed to do while on duty. He spoke. Out loud. The Gospel of Mark records the words of the soldier standing before the cross. Truly this man was the Son of God. Think about that moment. He is standing there in front of the cross. The spear still in his hand. With the blood of Christ on his face. Having just said out loud what no Roman would dare say in that place and at that time. And think about what that means to carry afterward. Not a small mistake. That. To know you were the instrument of the final suffering of an innocent man. A man who, according to those who knew him, was the Son of God. If you have ever felt that what you did is beyond repair, Longinus understood that better than almost anyone. But what happened next is what makes his story different from every other story. The days that followed the crucifixion were some of the most tense Jerusalem had seen. The religious leaders who had pushed for the death of Jesus suddenly had a serious problem. The tomb was empty, and the story of the resurrection was spreading faster than they could control. So they did what people in power often do when they feel threatened. They offered money. The soldiers who had been guarding the tomb were paid to say the disciples had stolen the body, to bury the story before it could take root. Tradition tells us that Longinus was offered the same choice. Stay quiet. Take the money. Return to your life as if nothing had happened. Longinus refused. Not because he was naturally brave. Remember, he had been the weak soldier. The one others looked down on. He refused because he had seen something he could not pretend he had not seen. He had felt something on his eyes that had no human explanation. And he had understood something at the foot of that cross that he could not unlearn. So he left. He left the army. He left Rome. He left the life he had always known. He sought out the followers of Jesus, the people who had walked with him and still believed in him. He was baptized, and he began to live in a completely different way. Eventually he traveled to Cappadocia, a region in what is now central Turkey, a land of stone valleys, caves, and silence, a place where no one knew his past, a place where he could begin again. There he lived quietly, in prayer, in fasting, without armor, without a sword, without a centurion telling him what to do. For the first time in his life, Longinus was choosing his path. Every day he chose to stay. Every day he chose to believe. And the quiet way he lived began to attract attention. People noticed the former soldier who lived with unusual peace. They began to ask what had happened to him. And Longinus told them. Not a polished story. Not a heroic version. The truth. The spear. The side. The blood on his eyes. And what he received in return. Many who heard him believed. Think about that. The man who had wounded Christ became one of the strongest witnesses to his mercy. Because no one can easily argue against a transformation like that. Eventually the Roman authorities heard what was happening in Cappadocia. A former Roman soldier speaking openly about a crucified man as if he were God. Converting people. Challenging the authority of the empire simply by telling his story. They sent soldiers to find him. Tradition says Longinus knew they were coming. He could have run. The caves of Cappadocia could have hidden him for years. Instead he went out to meet them. He invited them into his home. He gave them food. He treated them as honored guests. And when the moment came, he told them himself who he was. I am Longinus, the man you are looking for. The soldiers were stunned. They hesitated. Some of them protested. How do you execute a man who has just welcomed you into his home? But Longinus insisted. Not because he wanted to die. Because from the moment he stood before that cross, he believed his life belonged to something greater than his own survival. He was taken away. And he was executed. The same man who had once driven a spear into the side of Christ died confessing that that man was the Son of God. That is not irony. That is transformation. The story of Longinus is not the story of a good man who made a small mistake. It is the story of a man who stood at one of the darkest moments in human history and did exactly what he should not have done. A weak soldier, looked down upon, with failing eyesight, and he was reached there, not after he fixed his life, not after he proved himself worthy, there, with the spear still in his hand. That is what makes his story different. The message is not that if you behave well God will forgive you. The message is something harder to accept and far more real. That forgiveness came before Longinus could even ask for it. That mercy did not wait for him to be ready. That the blood that touched his eyes was not an accident. It was an answer. And that has something to say to you. Because maybe you have been telling yourself for a long time that your case is different. That what you did is too much. That others may be forgiven but your story is too complicated. Longinus had every reason to believe that about himself. He stood at the cross and placed his hand on the darkest moment of the story. And the response he received was not rejection. It was an opening, a healing, a beginning. So the question I leave you with is this. What are you carrying that you believe God cannot forgive? What part of your story have you decided is beyond repair? Because if Longinus was not beyond reach, even in the moment he did what he did, it may be time to consider that you are not beyond reach either. If this story spoke to you, let me know in the comments. You don't need to share details. Just tell me if it reached you. These stories exist for people who need to hear that they are not alone, that what they feel has been felt before, and that there is a path forward even when it does not seem possible. If you want to keep receiving stories like this, subscribe. And if this video might help someone who is carrying something in silence right now, that like helps it reach them. May Saint Longinus intercede for you. See you in the next story.